I'm Hunter with burleybags.com, and today we're going to break in some cornhole bags. I produce custom cornhole bags and competition bags. So I've got a new bag out. It's called the Marl Throw, and I have league night tonight, and I'm going to go show off this bag and try to build up some excitement around it. So it's really important for me to have 3 broken in sets by tonight. It's a really tight deadline, and that's probably the reason why you guys are watching this video, is to try to find out any sort of tips and tricks on breaking in bags in a shorter period of time than just going out and throwing them. So I mentioned just going out and throwing them. That is the recommended way to break in bags, and there are people itching to probably comment that now. So what I like to do is I want to invite anyone who wants to make that comment, if they have supplemental information to what I'm providing, different information, if you'd like to dispute some information, or if you just want to make a comment about my shirt, if you want to throw that into a constructive comment down below, I'd like to invite everyone else. Check out this video and then just check out the information down below. Hopefully we'll get some conversations going and really answer a lot of those questions before you have to ask them. So anyway, let's dive into it. So I've got 3 sets. One's for me. So I want to go and I want to play and I want to have a good time. A bag is not ready to play just right out of the package. So every bag is different, and you're using different fabrics, and some of them do come kind of a bit softer and have less of a break-in process. I have a bag that has like a kind of a gnarly fabric on it that feels pretty unique, brand new, but broken in, it's nice and soft. The idea personally for me to go throw a bag to break it in, not only do I just not have time for that as like a stay-at-home dad, but honestly, like, it just doesn't sound enjoyable to me to go play a bad game of cornhole and adapt my throw for a poorly performing bag until it breaks in and starts performing the way that I can rely on it to. I'm bad enough at cornhole, and I don't need to adapt my throw for that. So anyway, that aside, we're going to move on, and I'm going to break in 3 sets of these. The second set is for one of the guys in my group. He already bought one, and so I'm going to take it to league night so he can play with it. Good customer service there. And then the third is I'm actually just going to have a set there that is ready to use so people can try it out, and hopefully I can get some more interest that way. So that's the reasoning why I need 3 sets tonight, and it is important for me from a business standpoint to have these play ready. So let's get into it. Now, we got back to the thing about throwing bags is the best way to break it in. Okay, I'll take that, and that's totally fair. The best that I can do is I'm going to just throw it in a dryer with no heat all day long, and I'm just going to have these short little throws thousands of times throughout the day. It's not the same as throwing it 30 feet and 10 feet high and it just hitting, but it's the best I can do, and it's going to be thousands of throws. So then the next is going to be the most controversial way to break in, and I'm going to be boiling these, and then I'm going to be using conditioner. So it is controversial due to like damage. So what I want to do is I want to discuss the controversy around it. Then I just want to use a common sense approach to minimize the risks there. And then I want to help share some of the knowledge that I have from making bags to kind of help understand the risks that would be involved and just the approach I'm going to take. I do want to say I'm not removing the risk. Like, there's definitely still some risk going on. I'm not a scientist or a fabricologist, if that exists, and know like the true damage that could be going on. But there is some really obvious damage that is easy to avoid, and I'm going to talk about that. Then the third method is I'm going to be using a product called Sac Relax. So I just recently picked this up, and I'm going to try to start selling it on my site. I've used it one time, and I'm going to try to keep my bias out of it. Obviously, I'm not trying to bash a company, so it's safe to say that if this video makes it to YouTube, I'm not against Sac Relax, but I just want to kind of compare it to the results on the others. It looks like a conditioner, so you're kind of thinking maybe this is a conditioner. I'll discuss that. It's not a conditioner. So anyway, let's dive in. So the first set I'm going to just put in the dryer, tumble dry. I'm not going to document that. I think you can just use your imagination. But this second set I'm going to be boiling. So now the controversy that comes with boiling is the temperature is going to damage the fabric. It's going to damage the thread that's sewing it together, and then it's going to damage the resin on the inside. So I make cornhole bags. One of the really cool things about cornhole bags and the way I try to market myself is the exciting graphics that are on cornhole bags. So the most common way to get graphics onto a cornhole bag that I've seen from all the manufacturers that I've researched is dye sublimation. And dye sublimation works best when using 100% polyester. Now, there are fabrics on cornhole bags that are not polyester, but the vast majority is going to be polyester. So we're just going to use that as a baseline jumping off. There are exceptions to every rule, and just save ourselves some time with that. Speaking of time, as you can see, this video has already been going for a few minutes and it has got a long way to go. I'm going to do my best in post-production to go back and make little edits to kind of help you navigate jumping around to see the information you want, but I'm going to be documenting each of these processes as we go to try to just help give you the best experience that you can to save you from making hard mistakes. So with the boiling, we have got the damages I just described, and so we're going to be assuming polyester fabric. The threads that are the most common for sewing bags, you'd have like polyester or poly, and then poly bonded, and then you're going to have a nylon. And there's other types of thread as well. Those are just some of the more common that I've heard. And so we would have that to take into account. And then finally is the resin, which is a little bit more complicated. So as a bag manufacturer, I can tell you, nobody's going to tell you the resin exactly that they're using. And then they're also not going to tell you the exact fabric models that they're using. So what I find is going to be our safest way to proceed is, since we can't get all that information, just assume we got the absolute worst and we'll just plan accordingly. So with resin, there's basically two different types of resin. You have like an oil byproduct that is kind of controlled in the way that it's turned into a resin, or it can be, and that's going to be like where your higher end resins are, and you're going to have a very consistent result. For example, from my resin, I've gotten multiple mass shipments and they are the exact same every single time. The feel, the look, the taste, it's all identical. Then your other option is going to be recycled plastic. And recycled plastic is basically just a random plastics kind of recycled together, and the result is different every single time. You're talking about like the color could be different, the size is different, the density is different, the shape's different, like everything about it is different, and it is going to result in basically bags that are completely different with every batch of resin. So basically we're going to assume recycled plastic because that is the worst. So whenever I say the worst, the damage that I'm picturing is from the heat, and so I'm picturing melting. So then I went and I Googled, first I Googled or Facebooked, I can't remember, boiling cornhole bags, and I didn't watch the video, but I just saw some poor guy had just boiled his bags and he's clinking together two solid pieces of plastic. They were expensive bags, and I'm sure he was probably chastised pretty good for it, but he melted the resin inside of his bag and ended up with the blocks of plastic. So that's going to be easy to avoid, and I'm going to kind of talk about my approach there. And so what I did is I researched boiling point of polyester, boiling point of poly bonded and nylon threads, and then boiling point of plastics. So I found that the fabrics and the threads all were kind of in the mid 200 degree range, whereas the plastic, with a variety of plastics, you're going to have different melting points, but it says as low as 212 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's lower than the fabric, so that's what I'm going off of. So basically 212 degrees Fahrenheit happens to be the boiling point of water. So my approach going in here is I'm going to bring a pot to boil, and then I'm going to just lower it down just underneath boiling, and I'm going to have some bubbles, but it won't be like much of a boil at all. So my thought process here is I'm just trying to relax some fabric. So it's probably not even necessary to get that hot, but 212 degrees versus maybe like 205 or 200, I don't think the impact on the fabric is going to be that different. However, if you were to get to a boiling point and you leave the iron hot, you're going to go well beyond 212, and then there's some obvious risks there. So if we're talking about melting plastic at 200 degrees, then whenever you get that to like 250, obviously you're gonna be melting that a bit faster. So that's my approach, is I'm gonna just try to have the water underneath boiling. I'm not gonna measure the temperature or any of that fun stuff. That's just gonna be my approach. Then I'm going to be using conditioner. So another option is fabric softener. I don't have fabric softener in the house, so I'm not going to use that. But I'm going to be using conditioner. I've conditioned 2 sets of bags, got 2 different results, and now I'm going to be using a third conditioner. We'll see how that goes. But basically, the risks of conditioner is like a liquid that comes in and it coats. It coats with a waxy coating, and then it has like kind of like a residue that can come off. So just so you know, I mean, like, conditioner is not allowed by the ACL, so that's a bummer. But then it's also it's doing like a waxing coating. So if you can picture, if you ever had somebody who has just perfectly straight silky hair and you try to tighten a knot, it just kind of unties. So not only are you coating and getting this residue off of the fabric, but you are also kind of making it hard for like bonds to exist, because it's decreasing the friction due to this coating. And so it could kind of like work itself loose and unweave the fabric. So that's why bags burst. Typically not getting holes on like sharp corners. I mean, that is one way to burst, but others is like the fabric will actually unweave and then on the other side of the seam, and it can just kind of slip through the seam. So that is like the downside, or some of the downsides. I'm sure comments below. Somebody's going to have some additional information on that. But those are the downsides that we're looking at. So in my experience, I've conditioned 2 sets of bags, and I got the tip from other people in my league who conditioned their bags, and everything seems fine, honestly. But I've done it twice, and on the first time, absolutely flawless. The second time, it did have some residue from it afterwards. So I'm not going to get into the full-blown conditioning process. I'm going to take you through it, but I do have another video on that you can check out for a little bit more information. But as you can see, we're getting a little long already. So then the last one is I'm going to be using Sac Relax, and the directions on this are: wet the bags with warm water, work a quarter size amount into both sides, let it sit for 15 to 30 minutes, rinse well and repeat, and then tumble dry. So I'm going to be doing that, and I'm going to do that on 3 different sets, and then at the end I'm going to just discuss the results. So here we go. So before the boil, my bag is nice and crispy, very little flexibility, and you can see I just have a little bit of bubbles. I brought it to a boil and lowered it down just underneath. Here I'm submerging the bag in water before I put it in to boil for 2 minutes per bag. I find that getting water into the bag beforehand just kind of helps it sink a little bit in the pot. But as you can tell, it's still got a little air bubble. I'm having trouble working out. So I'm moving the bag around and keep it flipping so all the fabric has the opportunity to boil. So when the boil's finished, I just pull it out, let some of the water get out, and just quickly move it over into the sink where I run some cooler water on it just to lower the temperature of the bag so it doesn't burn my delicate hands. I get about a quarter size amount of conditioner and just thoroughly work that around the bag, just on both sides. And I will just try to massage it in, and I really like to work the corners by squeezing some of the resin fill into the corners. It helps pop them out and get a nice pretty rounded look. And then I just try to work the fabric in all the different directions that I can think of and really get that conditioner to penetrate and work it around. I like to try to time myself and do about 2 to 3 minutes of massaging per bag, and just really work it and work it, turn it and work it. Towards the end of the 3 minutes, you'll be able to tell a big difference. The bag feels more broken in than you would want it, mostly due to all the moisture that's still in there, but it'll tighten back up a little bit during the dry. Then you just continue the process for the other 3 bags. It's pretty exhausting, but it's totally worth the effort. After you've gone through the process for the 4 bags, it's just going to be really crucial you get all the conditioner off the bag. I like to use a washing machine. Here I'm just using some your typical plant-based biodegradable free and clear soap, and then I have an oxygen boost that we like to run. But I do this and then I run it on a hot cycle for hours. I like to do the soak cycles, and ideally I even like to interrupt the soak cycle and just open it and just let the bag sit and soak in hot water for about 30 to 45 minutes. That's like when the water tends to kind of cool down, and then I just continue the cycle. And now for the Sacrilex. This is a 2-ounce bottle of Sacrilex, which is the most common size that it's offered in. Here you can see I have some brand new kind of crispy bags. I'm going to plug the sink and just fill it with enough water just to submerge the bags in. Here I'm actually just using room temperature water. All right, then you're going to grab the Sacrilex and you're going to squeeze out a little bit, just about a quarter size amount, or try to squeeze, maybe try again. All right, you're gonna need to remove that cap. There is a foil seal that you're gonna want to remove. Then you can put the cap back on and you will squeeze out about a quarter size amount. Double check that size, you might need a little bit more. All right, and compared to the quarter, just to make sure. Sweet. All right, so take about half of that amount and split it, and then you're just gonna rub it into the bag. So that's a quarter size amount for the entire bag. And then you wanna just maybe time yourself for about 2 to 3 minutes and just work it in. I like to really concentrate on the corners and push the resin into them to help pop them out and make them look nice. And then I just try to work the fabric in alternating directions on each side, kind of turn the bag and do it just from every angle that you can imagine, and just try to kind of keep kneading it and working it and massaging it. And you'll see that the bag just really breaks in nice and thoroughly. And then you will just repeat this process for the other 3 bags. So at this point, I'm just comparing to a non-broken in bag, just one of the new ones, to the one that I just finished with all the Sacrilex, and there's such a significant difference. It's just super broken in, nice and flexible, it's waterlogged, so it's feeling even floppier than it will be once it's dried up. But at this point, I just kind of finish working it and then just work the next 3 bags. All right, when they're all done, I like to just set them in the water and just let them sit for about 20 to 30 minutes. However, in this process where I'm doing other break-in methods, I'll let these sit for about an hour. Afterwards, I'm going to take them to the washing machine. Here I'm pulling out ones that I just washed with soap to get the conditioner off. But I'm going to replace it with the bags I just did with Sac Relax, and soap isn't going to be necessary. So I'm actually just going to run these on that same hot cycle with the soak cycle in it, but I'm just doing it without soap. So I'm just going to help get any remaining Sacrilex out of it. Then I'll take them over to the dryer and I'm going to toss them in. I like to run mine on extra low heat. The heat's probably unnecessary, but I just dry them here and it just takes about 45 minutes. All right, so we finished that and man, was that just fun. All right, so my first bag that I got done was the dryer bag, and this was in the dryer all day for 10 hours, okay? So I don't have a really good way to show you the difference, but it does feel more broken in than this. This is kind of like the best thing that I can think of, or like whenever I do this, you can see the fabric's kind of moving, whereas here it's like the bag is kind of shifting and stiffer. Just take my word for it, it's better than this, but I'm not going to use this method again because I'm not going to sit there all day and keep going back in the dryer and doing this. And then honestly, the result isn't ready for me. I've still got to break this thing in before league night tonight, so I'm going to be using one of the other methods. So anyway, I was a little underwhelmed there. I would have to say I did it for 10 hours after 8 hours with no heat. It honestly didn't feel too great, but then I pulled out some of the wet bags and threw it in with it, and I added low heat to ensure that it dried the moisture out of the bags, which was probably unnecessary, but I did it. Now, that introduced a new risk of heat. So I Googled what's the temperature of a dryer, and it said something in between like 125 and 150. So with low heat, I'm well under boiling water temperature that it already went through. So I don't believe I'm causing really any sort of damage there. Somebody will probably disagree with me. Comments below. All right, so wasn't thrilled on that, so we'll move on. Then I've got my conditioner set, so no residue at all. This thing is money and ready to throw. I'm loving it. This is absolutely phenomenal. Technically, it's illegal with the ACL. My bags aren't ACL stamped. I'm horrible at cornhole. That is not a concern for me, but it is for others. Basically, what we're looking at here is I've used 3 conditioners that are all decent, okay? So they're like in the they're in the $12 to $30 range, so they're not the cheapest, and there obviously are more bougie options out there. But one of them was the restricted use conditioner in my wife's corner of the shower, and I stole some and I used it, and that was actually the one that left the residue behind on it. So I actually have to wash those with soap again to see if I can get some of that off of there. But that's kind of why it's not allowed, is that's really uncool to go put a residue on someone's boards. It's going to affect other people's bags, and then they're getting conditioner on their bag. So that's the downside to conditioner. So I don't know. It's hard to promote it, but like honestly, I don't have a residue here. This is freaking epic, and I'm really stoked on this set of bags. This is for me, since I thought that this could potentially waste a set. I'm going to do it for myself. So did that, and then the last one I have is the Sacrilex. So honestly, this is just as good as this one. The only difference that I'm feeling is the fabric kind of feels a little newer over here. Like stiff isn't necessarily the word because it is really broken in, just like this one, but I feel like maybe I am picking up on like the coating situation over here. So the fabric feels a little different, like almost like it's not as broken in as much on this one. But I do believe that's due to like a coating. But I am so amped on that, and I would definitely do this. So when it comes down to it, I mean, basically you got 2 choices. Is you probably have conditioner in your house, and then you have that risk of whether or not your conditioner is just going to be one of those that leaves that residue, and it's going to be a coating that goes in there, and then potentially you've got those other risks of it maybe unweaving the bags, and down the road, like who knows what's going to happen. So you have that, and then it's technically illegal. So it's my understanding that whenever Sac Relax came out, the ACL actually amended their rule about like using stuff to break in bags, and Sac Relax is supposedly like ACL compliant and it is legal. So that's cool. Definitely does not have any sort of residue. With conversations with the owner, basically he described what's in it as being like all natural plant-based oils, and it's just like super organic, and if it wasn't like scented, and then I think there's one other ingredient, you can just eat the stuff. So it looks like conditioner, but it's totally not. All right, so bias aside, I think these two bags are perfectly equal because I scored on my my conditioner. Everything's great. There are those risks that I don't know how to measure of like the fabric coming undone, or if it's being weakened by the boiling or something like that, because I used room temperature water whenever I did this, so I really got rid of a lot of those risks. So what I would have to say about that though is I have conditioner in my house all the time. I would have to buy the Sacrilex. It retails for somewhere in the neighborhood of like $12 from the different people that sell it, and it says it gets 4 uses, or like you could do 4 sets. The first time I used this though, I actually got 6 sets done by using a quarter size amount. So honestly, like that's a pretty good bang for your buck. It's $2, and I probably used $2 worth of conditioner on that. So it's definitely worth having. And then the differences in it. So I can definitely tell you, whenever I get conditioner on my hands, I need to wash it off of my hands. The Sacrilex, like it didn't feel like I had anything on my hands. Honestly, like I was underwhelmed by the feeling because didn't think it was going to do anything. So it kind of had that like nothing feel to it, but it looks like conditioner. It rubbed right into my bag if you saw that in the video, whereas the conditioner kind of smeared all around it. It also got in the bag, but it was like, it just spreads and then it has to be cleaned off the bag. I mean, I still washed these with no soap afterwards with the Sacrilex, just kind of get any remaining out of it, but it just emulsifies, which is like a word that you want to see. However, you will also see that in like a fabric softener, but the fabric softener is going to have additional elements to it that we're trying to avoid. So that's kind of what's going on with the conditioner, is it would have those waxy coating options and stuff. So just the emulsifying with like kind of a natural product, I mean, it worked out great, just as well, and it's approved by the ACL and all that fun stuff. Whenever I did it for the 6 sets, I would have to say that like honestly afterwards, my dry, rough hands, super silky smooth for like, it was like 2 days. So it was pretty impressive. Like you could just feel it, like it just felt like something good was going on. It didn't feel like I had like lotion on my hands. It was just like my skin was soft. So take that as you will. I would say that these two are quite equal, but this one has like a bunch of question marks around it. Also, depending on the products that you're using, you could get a different experience. As I said, and I don't remember the brand that I used last time, but I did have, it just felt like you could just kind of feel that little bit of a residue on your fingertips. And so I just had to rewash those bags with soap. So I do soap after my conditioner just to kind of help get it out. And then tumble dried low. So honestly, stoked on both of these results. And then just the tumble dried bags I was not into. So thank you guys for your time. If you found any of this information beneficial, it would mean a lot if you'd subscribe to my channel. Thanks.